doctors. She's also a Johns Hopkins trained traditional MD, and she has, there she is, I see her now. And Dr. Nancy, why don't you try and join the conversation if you can. There we go. Now we've got it. There we go. We've got Dr. Nancy Lonsdorf. She'll be joining us in a minute. There we go.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Great. Good to be on finally.
Yes. Yeah, it happens. It happens in the world of virtual tech. This is part of the game, right? I just wanted to do a quick introduction of you. Dr. Nancy Lonsdorf has been named one of the nation's most prominent Ayurvedic doctors by the Chicago Tribune. She's also a Johns Hopkins trained physician. She's an author. She's a speaker. And she specializes in Ayurveda, which I think is so fascinating because she's combining traditional Ayurvedic practices inside of her traditional or integrative medical practice. And she also is trained in high performance mind and brain practices. And that's one of the things that we will talk about today as I have talked to her about this so-called notion of quote unquote mommy brain. And she looked at me kind of quizzically and said, "How old is your child?" And I said, "Well, he's 4. And she was like, "You shouldn't be having mommy brain anymore." And I thought, wow, I didn't know that, because there's this term that kind of gets circulated and these, I wouldn't say handicaps, but this less optimal functioning that we often have. And we decide as mothers in particular that we just normalize it. Oh, it must be because I'm not sleeping. I've got so much going on. This is why I'm not feeling as optimally as I should. And you have told me this, and you really believe that this myth needs to be debunked. So why don't we just start there, Dr. Nancy, and you can kind of talk to all of us about this.
Yes, basically, I come from a Western trained medical background, but I also am deeply rooted in Ayurveda, which is the natural system of medicine from India. And it's really not just Indian medicine. It's a very long-standing knowledge of how our bodies work and what we need to do in our daily routine and life and diet to stay healthy and function at our peak, at our best. And, also, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Because, of course, steeped in the tradition of the Veda, which is where yoga comes from, the development of our inner nature is also important. And for mothers, I think, the development of the heart and love and the kind of connection and giving and tremendous role that women have to nourish and educate really the next generation, because those first years are so critical. So as moms, of course, one wants to feel the best you can. So you're giving the best to your child. So you can. I mean, there's modern life has a lot of challenges for mothers, as you know, when you're working full time and everything. But it is possible with some knowledge and some commitment to sneak in self-care here and there so that you can feel better and your best, even if you have children. So we can talk about some of those tips if you like. And
yeah, well, absolutely. And I would also like to, we're hearing a lot about this intersectional philosophy of medicine and integrative medicine and Ayurveda. I mean, why are there synergies, I guess? And talk to us about Ayurveda, it being a way of life, and how it sort of melds into and marries into what you do in medicine as well.
Yes, I started learning about Ayurveda and integrating it in my practice like 35 years ago. So it was kind of before it was natural medicine was so integrated. There's still miles to go, but there is a lot more awareness today, and people want natural approaches as well as the Western. So I think what's really been interesting to me is that when I first learned about Ayurveda, it was all just from, this is what Ayurveda says, this is the traditional knowledge and the traditional time you go to bed and time you get up, and that you should eat your main meal in the middle of the day, and you should meditate, and you should, all these different things. You should take a morning walk. And, and they resonated with me. And when I introduced those things to my patients, they experienced improvements in their health. So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to, there's certain things I can take on faith, if they work and they have, low risk, they're not going to give any damage to people. So, but really in the last 15 years, especially 20 years even, there's been a very, like an explosion of research on lifestyle medicine, diet, food, spices. Even I gave lectures and talked about turmeric, and people say, oh yeah, what's that? And now everybody knows what turmeric is and what it does.
It's in all of our smoothies. Yeah, of course.
And you have the, golden milk and golden chai it's pretty amazing. So I guess how I would answer that is Ayurveda is not something esoteric. It's actually being validated today. Western medicine is so-called discovering these points about how different spices have antioxidant effects and anti-inflammatory effects and immune-enhancing effects, and that sleep, what it does for rejuvenating the body, and how important it is, and different diets for different people, even that people metabolize differently, and different people metabolize what we consider high glycemic food differently. Some people, it will, like a cookie will not raise their blood sugar and a banana will, and vice versa. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying there's individuality that's being recognized in Western medicine, which is a foundation of Ayurveda, that people have different mind-body kind of types, and identifying that and matching the diet and the lifestyle and the herbs to that person is very important, and that's where you get the best effects.
And so many of us are now considering that wellness piece. We're working from home, living at home, juggling many things, and we're feeling not our best. So no matter our gender and sort of our background, what are some of the key tenets or key tips that you could offer to anybody to improve their sense of well-being, given these very trying times, stressful times, and boosting our immunity as well too, because we all want to continue to stay healthy?
Yes. So I think one of the most basic things, especially when you are home all the time, and those of you who have been home and working from home, and then maybe that's new, and maybe their kids at home, routine is something that kind of gets structured in when you have to show up at work at a certain time, kids have to be in school at a certain time, and that starts to fall away, when we're all home, and work and play times blur, and parents find they're working all the time and all of that. So I think really having a routine and keeping to that can give a lot of sense of balance, that you eat your meals at a certain time, and ideally you eat them, as a family. There's, lots of research showing that kids who are eating the meal with their parents, at least once a day, like dinner, they have less adjustment problems and mental health problems in their teen years, and they overall thrive more. So that protecting that time, so everyone's not just eating at their computer and not all day. So having that time, and maybe even, using the time to draw in the kids to cooking. Like a lot of parents are cooking for themselves, whereas they would have maybe picked up some food on the way home from work. They're actually cooking meals and
with the kids.
Including the kids, and teaching them, so they get used to, even the boys, I should say, that they learn how to chop vegetables and saute, and so they can do a quick healthy meal. And when they go to, out in the world, they have a habit of healthy eating. So I think that's kind of one of the upsides, and how you can make this a healthier time.
Absolutely. And as we think about immune boosting, and we're thinking a lot about what we're eating, and I know that's a big conversation that's happening across the nation, is that part of our role in being in being an advocate of our own health is starting to ask questions and thinking about what we're eating and what we're putting into our body. So what are some of the things that you're recommending also to boost immunity?
Yes, I think this is a really good time to stay away from sugar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sugar promotes inflammation. It's actually kind of the new cholesterol, that we find that it's a very big promoter of heart disease and arterial, atherosclerosis. So staying away from sugar. Sugar also often makes certain people, I can't say it'll be everyone, but a lot of people get kind of moody, like they get a little bit high and then they kind of crash.
Yeah.
And it can interfere with sleep. For women in perimenopause, sugar stresses their liver and their metabolism. They can get more hot flashes. So I think, just staying away from sugar and buying, maybe with the kids, if you have kids, you go to the store together and create the list before you go and think of what are some healthy snacks the kids would enjoy, that are maybe they're, dates and certain nuts and seeds and, it's just healthy treats, whole fruits, maybe berries, and maybe get some whipped cream or something that will make it special for them.
Yeah.
But it's still, healthy for young bodies. So those are the kinds of things I would suggest. Stay away from sugar and to really, the vegetables. Instead of saying, everything, don't eat this and don't eat that, I'd like to say, really include vegetables. Like you have one meal a day at least where you fill everybody's plate at least like half. Like if the plate is this big, like there's this much, like a pile of cooked vegetables. I kind of gravitate towards the Eastern way of stir frying or sauteing in a pan with some healthy oils and maybe a little water so the oil doesn't get too hot, and throw in some fresh ginger cut up, and then you can, spice it that way, or some Indian spices, turmeric, cumin, coriander, things. Or you could do, Italian spices, anything. It's just, if you're using whole foods and ideally organic spices and just have that half a plate of cooked vegetables a day, it does wonders for digestion.
Let's talk about why you say cooked, because that's also, I know, an important distinction there. It's not a big salad, and it's not raw carrots and cucumbers. Tell us why cooked vegetables are different and absorbed differently by the body.
Yes. First of all, I'll say, everything in balance, and Ayurveda doesn't really rule out any particular food for everyone all the time, but there is a value in cooked vegetables. It's not that all the antioxidants and everything get destroyed. That's not true. If you microwave, more of them can get destroyed, and there's quite a bit of interesting research. A bit of it is conflicting, but it makes sense to me that cooking the most natural way, like over a flame, or if you have electric stove, is fine, is better than the microwave and retains more of the antioxidants. So you want to cook because sometimes certain nutrients are more bioavailable when it's been cooked. So you can actually, the body can extract more nutrition from the food. And the idea that the enzymes get destroyed, enzymes get destroyed in our stomach when there's acid, because enzymes are a protein. So when we, eat protein, the stomach already starts degrading those proteins into pieces. And so, but I'm not going to argue that, because I think it's possible that some enzymes may sneak through, or they may have some action anyway. But you can have a salad. If you enjoy salad, have a salad. But I'm just saying, include the cooked vegetables too.
Okay.
And for certain people, raw vegetables and big salads, getting away from those can be curative. Like if women, I say women, it could be a man too, but it happens a lot in women who have, maybe they're thin and they're eating lots of salad, and that, they think they're doing good stuff for their body. But I've had a number of patients and a colleague of mine just learning Ayurveda. That was his turning point to integrate Ayurveda in his practice, because he had this patient who came. She was, 35, 40 years old, and had chronic stomach pain, abdominal pain. And she said, well, I eat really well. I have vegetables. I run. I'm a runner. She wasn't overweight. She's doing all the right things. And then he asked her, what she has for lunch. She said, oh, I have a big salad, lots of raw vegetables. And then he looked at her and he goes, oh, she's thin. She runs. She's eating raw vegetables. She's got stomach pain, vata. He said, the Ayurvedic understanding of a body type that doesn't do so well with cold things or lots of raw vegetables. So he had her, do the cooked food. And just like patients of mine have come back and they say, that was the last time I had that abdominal pain when I had that last salad.
Yeah.
So, there is wisdom in understanding your body type and what's right for you.
Let's also talk about a coping strategy that many people have employed, myself included, is that nightly glass of wine, right? As we are staying at home, we can't go out, we're feeling stressed out. We're turning, more of us are turning to that nightly glass of wine, something to reward ourselves and to treat ourselves almost. But what is the danger in that?
Well, interestingly, like Ayurveda says, like this much wine, like probably it's about an ounce in the right person, the right time. It's a nectar. So maybe, like there are even alcoholic herbs, prepared that are fermented, and you take them after the meal and they help digestion. But this glass of wine habit, it tends, what I've seen, one glass of wine, so, there's a difference in glasses of wine. You see cartoons, you see
glasses this big.
Yes. So, let's talk ounces, maybe, the research shows that like 4 ounces or less for women, 4 ounces is about the limit before breast cancer risk starts increasing. So we know that, there's a limit, and that's pretty small before the body starts being impacted in a negative way and immunity starts getting impacted. And also sleep gets impacted. And for perimenopausal women, alcohol can trigger more hot flashes. And Ayurveda says it is the most heating substance. So we say pitta increasing in Ayurveda, but that means, it increases internal heat. So women at that stage of life, especially, it's really not good. Interestingly, alcohol suppresses REM sleep. It tends to reduce, the dreaming sleep. And we've learned so much about sleep in the last couple decades. And dream sleep, REM sleep, is actually a way that our brain basically dissolves emotional stress. And it reduces the, it kind of works out the emotional wear and tear that we had during the day and issues that we dealt with that built up some pressure on our emotions. So when we deprive ourselves in any way from having that good REM sleep, like even just not enough sleep, cutting our sleep short, well, no wonder we may feel irritable and more reactive the next day. We've missed out on a kind of a reset that our brain does at night, and alcohol aggravates that. So that's another thing. And unfortunately, I've seen quite a few women. I think my practice is dominated by more women than men, maybe because we tend to go to doctors and take care of ourselves a little more than men do. But, even after menopause for women, often I've had several hard driving women who, they have a family life, they have a high pressure job, and that glass of wine is turned into 2 glasses of wine. And then I have a patient who came to me and she was, in her late 60s and now retired, semi-retired. And it was basically a half a bottle of wine every night. And she had not slept without sleeping pills for about 15, 20 years. And she was, from an Ayurvedic term, really complicated, kind of lots of layers of imbalances. Yeah. But she was committed, and she got a sleep band and started to monitor her deep sleep. She said the first 6 months she was gradually cutting down on alcohol and gradually getting herself off sleeping pills, like over a year, and cutting out sugar from her diet. She's completely transformed. And she said she went from having no deep sleep at all. That's the deepest rejuvenating sleep for the body. Yeah. She had none for months on end. And then it started creeping up. as she got more and more off all these different drugs and alcohol and all that. So
that, yeah, I mean, and that's a way to motivate, right? To get off of those habits. And those habits are hard to change. I've been changing them over a really long time. And we've talked about this. I'm like sober for all of 2021. And I think it's like the hardest thing I've done,
really?
I don't know, in years. Not like my career accomplishments, not homeschooling 3 kids. It's like giving up that habit of turning to alcohol has been a challenge, but has been so rewarding. I am sleeping better. I'm starting to lose weight. That was a big motivator. I wanted to lose some weight. And I do now guard my sleep more attentively than anything else that I'm doing right now. I pay attention to my food, but I'm much more forgiving with, okay, I'm not eating at all the right times and having, all the right combinations of food, but my tent pole starts and ends with how I'm sleeping. And that practice and the value of sleep has far-reaching repercussions. Talk to us about sleep and brain health and why we should be prioritizing our sleep.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask you what the repercussions are that you've noticed in your life, because I was inspired. Yeah. Actually, this Instagram Live is inspired because you were telling me earlier in the year of how you decided that you were going to not drink any alcohol and give up sugar and prioritize your self-care and all that. And already you were feeling so much better after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And now, wow, it's almost 3 months. And of course, you always look beautiful. But I can say you look even more radiant and more healthy. So you're just such a great exponent for what you've been doing for yourself. And the sleep is one of the greatest. Really, actually, there was a study done on same people, and they either slept fewer hours one night or more hours, and they had their picture taken in the morning, and then they had people blinded to what the design of the experiment was, to rate how beautiful or attractive the person was. And when the person had slept well, they got much higher marks than when they hadn't. So there you go. It's, beauty sleep is really,
yes.
It's a true thing.
True. Yeah.
So you can only imagine how every cell in your body is getting more beautiful. It's cleaning itself when we sleep. We're getting rid of toxins and waste. Even in the brain cells actually shrink up during sleep, so that it's like the channels get bigger. It's like as if all the buildings in New York City kind of shrank at night, and the streets got wider, so they could really clear out more of the garbage and everything that was stuck. It all got cleared away, and then in the day, then the brain cells get bigger again and plump. So it's like our whole body is designed to rejuvenate itself. And Ayurveda tells us we should live 120 years. That's in good health. That's like our genetic birthright as it is now. Maybe we'll be able to upgrade that, but let's just, reach whatever age we do without chronic diseases now, But, sleep is a huge part of it. It's just a built-in rejuvenator that nature gave us. And if we keep slapping it in the face by going to bed late and not getting enough sleep and, destroying our melatonin by being on the devices till too late and drinking alcohol and all the different things that we're doing that disturb our sleep, well, of course we're not going to stay as healthy, and we won't live as long probably. And we won't enjoy it. That's even
bigger. What are the connections between that brain fog that we talk about? And I know you have a lot of knowledge and expertise in Alzheimer's as well, and the connection with women as more and more women are getting are diagnosed with Alzheimer's. What are some of the sleep plays a big role in that? I know as well. Walk us through that and the effect on everyday cognitive health, but also the bigger picture.
Well, let me make it really graphic. That if you put down on your application for long-term care insurance that you have insomnia, or it's in your medical record, you are likely to be denied, even if every other thing is healthy. And that's because not sleeping is such a risk factor for losing your memory later in life that the the actuarial tables show that, and the insurers know it. So that the brain really relies on us having this good sleep, and day to day, even young people may think that they can pull an all-nighter and just cram at the end of the semester and then go take a test and do their best, but it's really not true. Those memories need several nights to get consolidated when we're learning new things. And interestingly, like, studies have been done where they took students who studied Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they thought, okay, well, the test is until Monday, so they were allowed to go out for a few beers on Friday night. And They compare that to a group that didn't go out for beers and just studied and had a usual weekend. And those who had gone out for beers, they lost like a significant percentage of what they had learned, even on Monday. It's not in there deeply. So sleep, there's consolidation of those memories that takes place overnight, and just one night of disrupted sleep, whether it's alcohol or not, can disturb those memories. So really, sleep the different stages of sleep do different things for our body and for our memory. And one thing's been discovered, like for our teenagers, that shorting sleep, if they don't go to bed early enough, and then they have to get up for an early start time as high school students, it's like in those last hours of sleep, our brain also kind of clears the cache. It's sort of like clearing your desktop, or the memory of what's running on your desktop. You close all the apps, and then there's more memory available for working on different things. Well, it's the same thing with our memory here, is that if we short our sleep, you can't multitask as well the next day and be more forgetful. And then, of course, we mentioned if we don't get that good REM sleep, that is especially prevalent in the morning. So it's like you got to sleep long enough to get that full benefit for our emotional health the next day.
So many of us want that sleep. We don't know how to give it to ourselves. We have trouble falling asleep. There's been lots of strategies that are more well known, like stop using the devices by, a couple of hours before bed. Don't eat a few hours before bed. What else can we do to preserve the integrity of our sleep and promote it? Because so many of us want it. We don't know how to do it. We don't know how to get it, and how much of it that we need. So what would you suggest to somebody who's watching and says, I've turned off my devices, I finished dinner a few hours ago. Now what? It's still not working.
Oh, yes. There's so many secret tips from Ayurveda that are very helpful, as well as the behavioral things that are out there already on the internet. So I'll focus on the things that right now are still Ayurvedic secrets, but hopefully they'll be well known in the next few years too. So, one of the things that's really interesting to me that hasn't been studied, I think, enough is bedtime. Bedtime is a concept that we think of as, children or parents, but we don't think of it as bedtime really for ourselves. Most of us, we kind of think, okay, bedtime's when we finish our work for the day, but actually establishing that regularity, including like when you go to bed, is really, really helpful. And Ayurveda tells us that, this is verified by chronobiology, the study of time and the cycles of day and night and how they affect our bodies, that that our body goes into like a cleansing mode at 10 o'clock that lasts till 2 a.m. in the morning. So the body's metabolism gets active in eliminating impurities and toxins. So like even research has shown certain chemotherapy drugs, if you give them at night, they're much less toxic than if you give them in the day. It shows how different our metabolism and our enzymes of detox are at different times. So Ayurveda tells us that. And it says that if you go to bed before then, like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. is a time of kind of the body's trying to wind down. It's settling down. And often people will start to feel tired. Maybe they even yawn at 9 o'clock or 9:30 or something. Of course, they think, oh, it's too early to go to bed. So they kind of just push through it. And 10 o'clock comes in, they get their second wind. And then they're good to go until they drop from fatigue at 12 or 1 or something. But if you actually go to bed when your melatonin is rising like that sleepiness around 9 to 10 is that melatonin rising. And if you can follow that inner wave of sleepiness and you go to bed then, well, you don't have to worry about how many hours of sleep you need, because you'll start waking up naturally when you've had a refreshing sleep, and it'll usually be by about 6 o'clock. And Ayurveda tells us you get up by 6, you'll be more fresh for the day as long as you had enough sleep. Whereas if you sleep later, you tend to be more lethargic and less alert and productive. And I've had healthy brain patients in my practice who came to me because of their memory problems. And I think of one lady who's a social worker in her late 60s, and she was really starting to have all sorts of really severe memory problems. And she just implemented the Ayurvedic to begin with, ate really healthy diet, started to go to bed by 10. And she's like, 2 months later, she was just telling me this. I'm so amazed. She said, I wake up. I used to like sleep until I had to, the last minute, and everyone in the family knew not to wake me up because I was like a bear. And then I had to have my coffee to just even open my eyes. And she said, I wake up at 6. I'm fresh. I feel good. I don't even need my coffee. And she's like just beaming because you get that freshness that from going to bed early and getting really the perfect sleep, because you're sleeping when your body wants you to sleep, because those are the times that the cycle of light has programmed our body to make the best of sleep. First it's detox, and then it's consolidating memories, and it's rejuvenating and surging hormones that are rejuvenating the body in deep sleep, like growth hormone, and then getting rid of emotional stress. So it's like you're going through a car wash at night. There's a step for everything. First you rinse, and then everything. You come out the end, and it's all done.
So that's so interesting, because that cycle works really well for me, because that's what my body, I feel like that's my quote unquote body type. There's a lot of new research and literature coming out about different sleep profiles or different sleep types. I saw something yesterday. It was like, if you're a lion, you like to wake up, at this time and this time. And if you're this, they're trying to like kind of make it more easy to understand. That pattern works for me, but what if it doesn't work for somebody else? There's some people who just do not wake up at 6 a.m. no matter what. You couldn't get them to wake, or you couldn't get them to sleep at 10. Is it that, how adaptable is this for different bodies and for different lifestyles? Because some people have to work. I used to work at a job where I used to work on a morning show, and I'd have to go to work at 3 a.m. It's not always possible. So what can you tell us about adapting outside of that framework?
It's doable. I think the most important thing is to try to keep as much regularity as possible, because our bodies are tremendously adaptable, and it may never be perfect to work the night shift, for example, as a nurse, or to, get up and be there at 3 a.m. Or, musicians have told me, well, we play until, midnight, and until the bar closes or the whatever. And so, but it's not like, you're doomed, or anything. It's just that, try to have as much regularity as possible and find out what works for you. For some people, maybe they only play late on Friday and Saturday night, and maybe their body really loves going to bed early. So they go to bed early the other 5 nights, and those 2 nights are up late, and they do the best they can, and then they get back to their schedule. There are people who are quote unquote night owls, and they have a later, like maybe their melatonin actually goes up later, starts later in the evening. But still there are limits. Like, There is a behavioral component, like, those people still, I don't believe that it's really natural for their body that, their melatonin is going to go up at 3:30 and that should be their bedtime. I mean, usually it's kind of relative. It's relative. It's like, okay, they do better if they go to bed at around 11:30, or maybe it's as late as 1. But and I've worked with some night owls in my practice, and they are able to shift forward. They may not ever go to bed at 10, but they can start going to bed by midnight, and they will feel better. And there's actually some research on that now. I was just reading about a study where they took night owls and they had them go to bed earlier, and they found that they had significantly less depression, and that probably was due to they have to short their sleep because the world around them starts earlier and they don't get that REM sleep. Remember, we were talking about how REM gets rid of emotional stress. So, yeah. And they found with teenagers and middle schoolers that if they make their bedtime, they don't let them stay up till midnight, which was their norm. They made them go to bed by 10, that they had significantly like 25, 30% less depression and suicidal ideation, which is really huge because, there's a big problem in our teenagers today with depression and suicide.
Yeah.
If just going to bed earlier could cut that by a third or 25%, that's huge.
How long does it take to shift a routine? If I go to bed at midnight, let's say, and I want to get to 10, how long would you give me? When would I start to see quote unquote results, right? Because everybody wants to, okay, I'm going to bed earlier. And this time change this week is prime example that 1 hour can make a huge difference. I have not been able to sleep on time. I'm like, my whole schedule's been distorted. So shifting 2 hours earlier might feel drastically different. So how would you go about making those routine shifts, and how long does it take for the routine to start kicking in and you start to feel better?
Okay, that's a really great question. I like to think about jet lag. If you've ever traveled, especially, maybe you've traveled 2 hours or 3 hours across the U.S., or you fly across the Atlantic or to the, halfway across the world, you experience a big jet lag, meaning that, just like when you decide you're going to go to bed at 10 instead of 12, it's like a jet lag. It's like you landed in a new time zone. Your body's still expecting to go to bed at 12, and yet here you are lying in bed 2 hours earlier. So, right. There's a rule of thumb about for 1 day of time zone or time change, for every hour of time change, it takes about a day to adjust. It's kind of simplistic. I think, different parts of the body adjust at different rates. So, if you're making an adjustment of a couple hours, I would say that it'll probably take a week. A week or so, or week to 2 weeks to start really feeling in a groove with it. And also, you probably aren't going to be perfect. There'll be nights you go to bed at 10, some 10:30, some it sneaks up to 11, or, so it takes a while. And people are different. Like some people are so disciplined, and they'll just go to bed at 10. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And they'll probably adapt faster. And other people kind of meander around the goal, and then they get there eventually. And so everybody's different, and people make changes in different ways. And I think the main thing is to be persistent. Be persistent. If you really is a goal, then just keep trying. Eventually you'll get there.
That's great. I think that adaptable approach is so important, particularly right now. But I think that's really been missing in a lot of these routine changes and wellness approaches. Is I, for one, would get really caught up in, okay, I've got to, eliminate sugar. Well, that's almost nearly impossible to do. So how can you have a more realistic approach? And it sounds like we can do that with sleep, but we can do that in all areas of our life.
I have a question for you. I'm really curious because when you were telling us about the changes you've made since the beginning of the year, and you have 3 children you're homeschooling, you said there are a lot of repercussions. So what have you noticed by making these changes for your routine in your family and yourself?
So I will be honest. Okay, so the three changes I want to do. Well, if I'm on a path to lose. I want to lose about 10 to 12 pounds, so probably more. But I'm down 7, so that's good. And now I'm like, okay, I probably want to do 7 to 10 more. That was my real motivation. But also, I felt that my routine was really restricted. Like I needed my cup of coffee in the morning, and then I didn't have wine every night, but I would have it a few nights a week, and I would only have one glass. But paying more attention to my sleep, I could notice that my sleep was disrupted, and I just didn't like to feel like I needed something to make myself feel better. So I wanted to cut out coffee. I wanted to cut out any alcohol, and then sugar. I know I don't eat a ton of sugar, but I just knew it would make a difference for calorie wise. So I decided. So for the first month, I was super hyper restrictive. I was not eating. I was really more Whole30 based. I was really, more restrictive. But I could not sustain that. That was just not something I could do for months after months. And the scales barely moved, to be honest. And so that's what allowed me to kind of shift my approach. Was like, I'm doing all this hard work. I do the Peloton. I do all these things every day. Maybe I'm too restrictive. And so I started to change in February, where I just more naturally just ate. I mean, I let myself have a dessert on the weekend, a small piece of whatever the kids were having or whatever it was. And then I had coffee on the weekends because I just was like, oh, I need something. And I started to lose weight when I started to do that. So what was interesting is that I think it took a while, but I think that restrictiveness really did not serve me well. And that's something that I'm playing around with philosophically in my whole life, right? I've been very disciplined and perfectionist oriented. And as I start to be more balanced, my body really responds well to that and appreciates that. But for me, keeping out the alcohol is something that I just want to continue to do. So my sleep is improved. I try not to eat after 6 or 6:30, and I'm in bed by 9:30 or 10. So keeping that space, that also allows for the intermittent fasting windows to kick in, which I know is also important. So I don't, I at least fast for 12 plus hours, if not 14. All of that, I think it took like a big picture combination of a lot of different things. And based on your guidance, I eat my heaviest meal at noon, and it's my biggest meal. And so all of those things, I think in combination are working together. But the sleep thing, this week I've been off, my face is all puffy. Like I just feel, I woke up like, an hour and a half ago.
You would never know it.
I cannot figure out this sleep thing. So the time change really threw a wrench in things. But, I think that's where I have found direct evidence that being more flexible and forgiving with myself and more balanced and not worrying about, okay, I'm having I had a cup of coffee on Monday, because I was like, whoa, I'm just off. And taking more of a holistic approach and a long-term picture approach, I think has really served me well. And that's been, I think, really well supported by Ayurveda, because I think, Ayurveda is a lifestyle, and it takes a lot of time. And I've worked with you over many, many years, and you gave me lots of choices and things that I could shift. And I was like, I'm going to do these. And then because I have a baby at home, and then I'm going to do these when it feels right to me. And I think that is why I've been able to carry out and make these changes, is because I've done them over time.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point for people to just, you may read about Ayurvedic routine and you just go, well, that's impossible. But if you look at it a couple times, read it a couple times and go, well, I think I could do that one thing.
Yeah.
And that's really the road to integrating a healthier lifestyle, because, just like diets, if you change everything and be extreme, then you fall off it after a while, and usually people gain the weight back plus some. We know that this yo-yo actually promotes weight gain over time. So kind of the opposite is just being moderate with yourself and make one change at a time. I'll give people if you're interested in the Ayurvedic and learning your own type and some tips for yourself, I have quizzes on my website, which is Dr. Nancy Health, drnancyhealth.com. And there's a stress quiz and there's a digestive quiz. And you can take either or both. And you take the quiz, very short quiz, and then it will give you a tip a week for 6 weeks. So you can integrate them one at a time over time. And maybe that's too fast for you, but you can write them down and come back to them. You know, you can just start with the first one. And they're really simple things that you just about anybody could do, like use a spice or drink hot water. You've done hot water, drinking hot water through the day. That's a very simple Ayurvedic detox. Oh, I just wanted to mention too, as we're getting close to the close, that this Ayurveda tells us that this change of season that we're going through, like in the next few days, is a very important change of season for the entire year, and that the body is going to be shifting into a detox mode naturally. And the channels of the body, all the circulatory channels, just like at night, things open up and flush out. Well, now, like the whole body as a season is doing more of that. So this is a very good time to make shifts and eat a healthier diet. Like I would think of there were pet swans at a place I worked one time, and they fed them, you know, swan food during the winter. And the summer, they would just, when they let them out of the cage to go back to the pond, which froze all winter, they would eat all the greens. And the bunnies come out and they love eating greens, and the deer, because they've been eating this heavier stuff all winter. And now they want to eat the lighter food that is going to help cleanse their system. So it's the same for us. You know, it's a time of shifting weather, shifting climate. And of course, I'm speaking Northern hemisphere, basically. We're going to spring. And this is a good time to drink boiled hot water. Just boil hot water, put it in a thermos, and drink a little bit every half hour or so during the day. And you'll help the body flush out all the impurities that may have built up as your body was kind of protecting itself in the cold, and everything was held tightly and you weren't sweating as much. So this hot water is going to be really, it can actually reset your digestion as well and get rid of a lot of gas, bloating, constipation.
And warm water with your meals also, not ice cold water. I know that's a tip, and it's amazing that water can be so rejuvenating and detoxing.
Yes. And the thing is that cold causes things to constrict. You know, we put our hands in cold water and the blood vessels constrict, and warm helps everything to open up. So, and also, you know, digestion is chemistry. So if we put ice water down with our meal, like we like to do in America, I used to laugh at the Europeans that they drank warm beer and room temperature wine. I thought, that's so crazy. As I grew up, I put ice cube in my milk and my orange juice, you know. But this is not a good way to promote good digestion, because digestion is chemistry, and chemistry takes place better in warm temperature, like the body temperature at least, which is close to 100 degrees. So we want to drink warm water, hot drinks with the meal, and within the hour or so after, for sure.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Nancy Lonsdorf. And again, it's drnancyhealth.com. You can take her Ayurvedic quiz and her digestion quiz and get specific recommendations for you. And again, slowly take them up. This is not a fad diet, something you do overnight. And it's something that Dr. Nancy has helped me do over the course of many years, to slowly shift my lifestyle. And I'm feeling better for it. And so that's why I wanted to bring what she does to all of you. Dr. Nancy Health is where you can find her. And thanks to everyone for joining. And thank you to you, Dr. Nancy. I appreciate it, as always.
You're welcome. It's been a delight. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye.